Cool. All right, I'll get started then. So, could you introduce yourself to us if you want to? However much you want to. Like, who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing with your life at the moment?
Yeah, sure. My name's Josh. I'm from Northampton in UK. And at the moment, I am unemployed. I am taking a break from employment. Um, yeah. Do you want me to go into that and say like what I was
No,
doing
well,
and
I guess
things?
that's the
Or
next question would be
it's
like,
pretty much
so
it. So it's been calm. Yeah.
yeah. So recently, yeah, you left your job recently. After how many years were you there for?
Almost 7 years.
Almost 7 years. And like you said, you're currently unemployed. What was the job that you left? If you're willing to share that.
So I was a team leader of data analysts. So my job was all working with data information from the company that we had, from their clients, the company itself, sort of cleaning the data, getting it into usable formats, and then presenting it for reporting mostly, but also to influence like business decisions and that. So if the company needed to know what to do in a certain scenario based on how it's gone for another area of the business, we could kind of give them ideas and that. So yeah, data analysis is probably the easiest way to explain it.
Cool. And being there for nearly 7 years or just over 7 years, you didn't start in that position, did you? You worked your way up.
Yeah, that's right. So I started back when I first started, it was actually a temporal. And I was a consultant and it's a recruitment company that I was working in, and effectively getting people into work was the beginning of my role, and it was a temporary contract I got given. I did well at that, and was made permanent, and then I stayed within that style of consulting role for about 3 years, I think. I went into a senior in the position, and then I was a team leader of a team throughout sort of the busier periods and things like that. Then came there was an opportunity to transition, do like a side grade, if you like, and move into a payroll division instead of a consultant position. So I did that, straight into a team leader position as well. So I had to learn a payroll system, responsible for quite a few thousand people each week, which is quite good. Stayed in that role for a little bit, but then naturally, as you go into payroll, there's a lot of money involved. So there's a lot of data, there's a lot of figures involved. And I started to just get involved a lot more within Excel. And that got me noticed. I was sort of messing around within Microsoft Excel, and got me noticed by some of the senior management there. And they said, we've got this project coming up and we need you to help work and build something, to get it working on the payroll team. So I was like, yeah, that's fine. So I joined in with that, and then that easily just paved the way to go into a data analysis role after that, because they could see I could use Excel and handle a lot of data at once and that. And then, yeah, for the last 2 to 3 years in the company, I was doing data analysis, and again, did the same sort of route. Started off as sort of just a normal sort of the standard level analyst, and I was a senior in the role. And then team leader, I managed a couple of people who were also doing the similar sort of work.
Cool. So yeah, you progressed quite far within your role from where you started to where you ended up, I would say.
Yeah, it was quite. I think I was fortunate, but I also think I made the right choices at certain parts where I sort of got involved in things. So I sort of the idea, the biggest jump was when I started getting involved in Microsoft Excel and started messing around with building things and things like that, and that got me noticed. If I'd not bothered to do that in my role, I might not have been with that company. I might have left a lot earlier. I might have still be with them in a different role. But yeah, it paved the way for a lot more interesting work and more that's my forte. I've always been involved with the technology throughout my life. Computers are really natural for me to get involved with and that. So yeah.
Cool. And I think for me, finding the right job was always a bit of a mission. I've gone from job to job over the years, either through moving countries or just getting bored of a job, to be honest, or temporary roles. But I feel like my current role is where I belong, with a toy company. And this was sort of your first, I guess, full-time job after uni, would you say? Because you worked at a
Yes.
pub before that, sort of part-time from what I remember. And did you feel the same at one point with this job? Like this is exactly where you want to be for the foreseeable, or did you always feel like you wanted to go elsewhere eventually?
always had that in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something else. Yeah, I never felt that this was the final career path, that I was always meant to go into something else, basically. Yeah, I mean, the job I did at university, I was just working in the pub as a server. That taught me a lot of skills, a lot of personal sort of social skills a lot as well, and sort of getting used to the way the world works for most people. But obviously that was always kind of just a side piece. I thought, I'm doing this in university. Now stop that and then finish university. And after university, I was a bit lost, to be fair, and didn't really know what I was wanting to do. And then obviously this temp role came up, and I was like, I need to get into work and do something. So this will be a start. Yeah. So I'd say my degree really didn't even come in handy, I suppose, until maybe the last couple of positions I held, which were a lot more senior within the company. And that's probably allowed me to get them easier, I think, because they saw that, that's sort of a good ticket to show you've done some work. But even in the role I was just in the roles I've been in, I've back when I first started that temp role and got into the permanent side of it, I was kind of just living life. I wasn't really expecting to go into a career. I was just sort of like earning money, being social with people at work and outside of work, and just kind of living, really, just enjoying stuff. I suppose the last couple of years when I got into sort of the more interesting work, the data analysis, that felt more like a career path. And I feel like I could, if I'd not left the business, I could have stayed within that very easily, and probably continued to do that for as long as I wanted, actually. But yeah, those last few years, they're probably the best. They've probably got me into a position where I'm like, right, okay, I think my career is going to be related to this. But yeah, never in any of those jobs did I think, this is it now, I'm on the final path, so I've always had this sort of in the back of my mind that I was going to do something else, which is probably why I left, a big reason why I left, I think. So
yeah, I was going to say, I think it's quite a brave I guess risk in taking to leave a job that you're quite well established in. So I was going to ask what sort of gave you that final push in order to do that, and how long did you feel the decision was going to be made? Did you think maybe just a few months before you left, or was it a long time coming? How did you come to that decision?
It's a combination of things. A big one that I didn't even realize it until I finally made the decision, which was within the last half a year, I'd say, was the pandemic. For someone like me who spends a lot of time at home, online and things like that, it's quite easy for me to be like, working from home, it's very easy to get into that. I'm not going to be fussed. I don't go out massively amounts that I used to. But it takes its toll and you don't realize it. So I got pretty stressed quite a few times during that. But it wasn't the nature of the work itself that was causing me to do that. It was more the fact that I was seeing patterns, I think. Because when you work in a business for a while, you start to see the business doing things that it's done before, and you start to see faces come and go, and you kind of realize that you've been there for a while now, rather than it's not, the novelty's worn off, and people that you started with are probably mostly gone. So that kind of, I realized, I'm still here, sort of thing. Not that it was a bad thing, I was doing well in the role. But yeah, that then it sort of added some stress on, and I realized that I was finding it harder to motivate myself because I wasn't as interested in people's, not necessarily their problems, but the work they had to do. I kind of got wrapped into a lot of work with different areas of the business, because when you have that sort of central data analysis role, I wasn't really pinned into a certain area. I was very sort of doing different things around the business. So you get to see a lot of the business and what it's doing. So when you do, you've kind of seen everything, and you see the patterns in the way they work, and people saying, I need this doing, we've got this coming up, new project, new avenue for all this. You see the pattern and you kind of like, I kind of don't want to do that again, and then everyone has their own stresses and their own deadlines that they kind of put on you in a little way. Not saying that it was their fault, but everyone sort of feels the pressure. Yeah. I was feeling it from a lot of different angles. So I got to a point in the first year of the pandemic I broke down at one evening after work, which I've never done before at all in school or work. And it sort of hit me, and I was like, oh, okay, this isn't good. Like, this is a physical reaction to, you suppress a mental thought for long enough, then your body's sort of going to respond, because they're, the same thing, aren't they? They work together. And that was the first point. That was sort of like the first point. It's like, okay, something's not right here, because, you're doing that. So then I took steps within work to make it a lot better. Managing workload, delegation, all sorts of things that most people have to sort of learn when they're working, especially if they go to a manager position, which I was in at the time. And that staved it off for a while. But then I saw the pattern again, and I was like, right, okay, I clearly don't want to do this. Not necessarily the role anymore, but the business was doing it. Because I've always said, like, if I'd have been offered a role or something with another company doing like work on, because it was a recruitment company, they were saying like, oh, you want to do data analysis for climate change or something like that, I'd probably go into that, because that's a lot more interesting, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then it got to a point, and I thought, right, what do I do? And I didn't know immediately. Like, I didn't have anything that I wanted to do, and during a global pandemic, it's pretty hard to move around in a lot of places, and you don't know what's going on really with a lot of things. So I just decided, okay, well, I think I need to take care of my health a bit, my mental health. So I decided that, I will make a decision to leave, and then make the choices when I've left and beyond that. And I'm very fortunate to have been able to do that, because that sounds incredibly risky to a lot of people. One, leaving a job without anything lined up is a big thing that a lot of people don't advise on or would be scared to do.
Yeah.
Two, during a global pandemic where you'd expect the job market to be a bit crazy. Although I think the job market is actually a lot better now. There's a lot of vacancies.
Well, I worked in recruitment when it started, and the job market went down the drain, and then it started to come back in certain sectors, and now it's just sort of back to, I think, where it was. I mean, at least the amount of recruitment I've seen in my own company.
Yeah. I think it's like pre-pandemic levels in some areas, so that's good.
So would you say you sort of felt burnout then in some way overall?
Yeah, I think so. I almost had to look up what that was. Not that I didn't know. I understood what the term meant, but like, is this actually a bigger thing than just people saying, "Oh, I'm burnt out"? Because people say that sometimes, and you think, "Oh, give it a holiday, and you'll be back." But that never worked for me, because if I ever took annual leave, I'd always have a thought in the back of my head that, like, I'd almost have a mental clock like ticking down, be like, right, okay, I've got this many days left, this many days left, this many days left. Yeah. And that was a subconscious thing. So that didn't work. So then I thought, it must be, clearly I don't want to do this anymore. Like, my body and my mind's telling me stop. But I was fortunate. Yeah, I saved money, and I don't have any dependencies and things like that. So I was able to make that sort of risk. But yeah, my biggest reason is sort of a mental health reason, burnout, and trying to do something different, I suppose.
Yeah, I think burnout is a very real thing, and I think you're right that some people just get a bit bored and go, "I'm burnt out," when naturally you're not. You're just you're sick of the same thing every time. Whereas burnout, at least in my experiences, you literally wake up and you feel like exhausted the second you get into work. You feel miserable. You don't want to be there anymore, and it's not always the fault of the company or people at the company. It might just be the situation, but it's piling on. Like, for me, working at the police previously, which we've gone into before, but that kind of job is stressful anyway. But when you're dealing with everybody's problems constantly, and then you're not dealing with your own problems or problems at home, it really does pile on. And that's the reason that I decided to leave my job back when I didn't have dependencies. And obviously I traveled to Australia and things like that. That's not for everybody, but I think burnout's a real thing. So I guess this kind of goes into what I was going to say was, I felt a little bit guilty when I left my role at the police way back when, doing a similar thing to you, because I felt like I was one of the most senior people on the team at the time. Maybe I'm relied on a little bit. And I wonder, do you feel any form of guilt in any sort of way to your team or the people you managed, or you don't really feel anything at all?
Yeah, I think I did. I mean, because it was about a year ago. Well, a year and a bit ago when I realized, okay, something needs to change. And, it took me a while to come to the decision to leave. And part of that was like, I've got so much to hand over. I've got so much that I do that people rely on me for, but also that, that I need to just let go. Because that was another thing. I didn't really let go a lot of my work, and I had to learn how to do that a lot. So then you feel guilt because you are effectively, in the eyes of the company, putting them at some small portion of risk. If someone's leaving that is established within their role and not trying to be big-headed but was good at what they did, then potentially you might have a problem. So then you feel a bit of guilt because you're like, oh, you're kind of leaving this team behind. And I managed some great guys that were really, really good to manage as well, very relaxed people, and I never really had any problems with them. So you feel a bit of guilt then, especially when you really like the people that you work with. But I just had to come to terms with that, because when I spoke to my manager then and told him that I was going to leave, I said, I gave him a lot of time. I gave him like 2 months, notice, instead of the standard like 4 weeks I had to give. Because I basically leveled with him. I said, I know that this potentially might cause some upset, or, we'd need to think about something. So I'll give you some time to get people used to it. Also to give people a chance to tell me if there's stuff I need to get over. So that helped with the guilt feeling because I had more time. But also when we had the conversation, he effectively said, well, unfortunately, this is a company, and if we strip away everything, you are a head at this company. You are you are just literally, in the eyes of the company, you are one head that does this specific role. So all of these personal ties and skills that you may have, unfortunately, the company's just going to see that that's gone, it needs to be replaced. And that kind of puts it into perspective, because although it's not nice to think about that, that is the truth a lot of the time. And then that helped me, because I thought, actually, he's right. Life's going to go on, but and it has. I've not been contacted by them. I've spoken to some of the people that I was on more of a friend basis with at work, but no one's contacted me for work stuff. There were some critical things I used to do that I handed over, and I was expecting maybe 1 or 2 of them to come back and say, like, there's something that we didn't get right, but they've clearly dealt with it, because at the end of the day, I'm not this sort of irreplaceable thing. So that helped, and that the guilt did go, but there was some of it originally.
Yeah, and I used to feel the same way, a little bit guilty, well, at roles that I'd been in for a while. And I think it's more because you make those close relationships with your colleagues. You see them, the same amount of time you see your family, more or less. So you do have those ties to them. But I always find that, a couple months later, people that you may have spoke to every single day, gone to drinks with, whatever, they don't talk to you anymore, or you don't talk to them. And it's not like we don't like you. It's just that what do you have? You don't have that common link anymore. There'll be like a few people, and I've got like maybe 2 people from a role that I worked at a long time before that I speak to a lot. But and I think it's the same now. I love where I am now. Love every single person that I work with, more or less. But if I was to leave, I feel like, yes, that you're not going to keep in contact with every single person other than LinkedIn or something like,
Yeah.
So I think it's a good way to think of it.
Like first couple of years I was like, oh my god, I love these people, they're so cool. We've been out for drinks, we've been nights out and things like this, and that was naivety in a way, because then literally none of them I've spoken to now, and there's only a couple of people that I truly actually formed a bond with. One in particular, I suppose, is the only person I could say that I would be upset if I didn't keep in contact with them, or if they didn't keep in contact with me. But most of the others, I mean, I even jokingly said to some of my old teams, like, I used to get on with them so well and used to have a lot of fun and banter with them and things like that. And I straight up said to them, look, I'm not being funny, but I said, as soon as you leave or I leave, I said, I'm not going to speak to you anymore. I said, this is just how it is, and you have to understand that it's a strange thing, because you can make such strong ties with people at work. But when you get rid of that common thing, which is work,
it's the same with like school, isn't it? Like you had a best friend probably in primary school, middle school, or high school, whatever, and you probably don't speak to many of them anymore. I think, I could name maybe 3 people that I've kept in contact with since school on a regular basis. And that's not to say I don't like the other people, but I'll maybe speak to them once in a blue moon or something like that. And I think it's the same with work. And I think people get too attached and stop themselves from leaving a company they're actually not happy at because they don't want to let down their friends, or they like the social aspect of it. But the social
you have to
aspect is one side, isn't it? And the work is another. So
yeah, you have to be selfish. You actually do have to be that way, and not in a malicious way, because when you say selfish, you often think that's a bad thing. But
yeah,
taking care of yourself is probably the best way to put it. You know, and you put what's right for you first, because people will accept it. You know,
yeah.
like some people will be like, "Oh, you're leaving. Can't believe this." Blah blah blah. You know, and then
Yeah,
that's it.
you get
You
the
won't hear
gift.
from them again.
Yeah, you get the
Yeah.
gift at the end. You appreciate it. You speak to them for a few weeks, and then it just fizzles out as it will.
Yeah.
So
You'll make the bonds again with another company, with another set of people, you know,
yeah,
because the work
exactly.
is what connects you to people. Rather, there will only be it's few cases where you actually truly make the bond. So, as bad as that sounds.
Yeah, but I think you're right, and I think that's the same in life. I mean, that's why most people go through different partners, different jobs, different friendship groups, whatever. It's just the way that it is. So I guess moving on to like what you're up to now and how things have been going so far. Have you looked at any other roles out there at the moment? And if you have you found the application process to be different to like 7 years ago when you first started applying for jobs, or how are you finding it if you are looking at the moment?
I'm not looking, but I did look. I did have some periods of looking. I mean, I'm not actively looking, is because if I was looking, then that would mean like every week I'm doing stuff towards getting a role.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I did see roles, and it was kind of reassuring actually, because I'd looked when I was leaving as well, and the similar roles that I was doing for the similar pay scales are there in, you know, they're out there. So I'm kind of secure in the fact that I can do that. Because it's been like 7 years since I've done a job application. Yeah, things have changed. And also even more now in the pandemic as well, because a lot of it will be like this, will be video calls and things. But I've not done any full applications, so I can't really comment on that. But at the moment, yeah, I'm not actively looking. It's been about 2 months, two and a bit months since I left now, which is a fair amount of time, I suppose. It goes quick, but for the first month, it was difficult. It was sort of me trying to get away from the thoughts of my old place and learning to take time for myself and things like that. And actually now I'm starting to enjoy my free time a bit more, which is good. But now the New Year's hit, yeah, I'm starting to think about what I'm going to do. So yeah, I've got thoughts going around in my head, but nothing that has actively been, I've not gone into any active job hunting at the moment.
So you're not sort of leaning towards a specific role at the moment. You've looked at things similar to what you did. But would you rather do something totally new or something with transferable skills that's a little bit different? What are you sort of thinking at the moment?
I don't think I would do something completely new unless it was something that fell into my lap a bit and I enjoyed it. If someone was like, you're not going to be working with any systems or any computers, you're going to be doing like a manual labor job or something like that, but I'd spent a week doing it or something, you know, somehow from some whatever reason, and I enjoyed it, then that would be a chance where I could see that, you know, like a manual trade, you know, if I was like somehow doing electrician work or something, and then they were like, oh, you can we'll give you a job here, then that's, yeah, potentially. But no, I wouldn't actively try and jump a career like that. I know that whatever I do is probably going to be something to do with computers or systems or technology. I don't really want to go into the role I was doing again. So, you know, sort of bog standard data analysis and providing reports and things like that. But I'd like to do something. I'm sure there are transferable skills I can use on there. You know, there's sort of within data analysis, there's other sort of areas like data science and things like that. And generally, once you start to get your foot in certain aspects and learn certain things, you can, yeah, sort of jump around the industry a little bit, I suppose. So one thing I kind of want to do is to potentially learn some programming, because that'll open up things, you know, in a lot of different areas of technology. But I could combine it with my experience then, you know, for example, you know, data analysis, you only really need to know how to use the software that you're using, like Excel or like a business intelligence platform like Power BI. But if you learn other things like a programming language as well, then potentially then when you can go into sort of more research roles, or you can get involved with maybe something to do with like machine learning and things like that. So yeah, I've always kind of been interested by that sort of stuff. So I think what I'm going to try and do is try and pick up a few more skills, but I mean, I'll probably even try and look at jobs with that as well, because there are a lot of jobs nowadays that you can get your foot in the door if you know how to do some of it, and they'll train you up on other aspects of it as well. So potentially it could be something like that. But yeah, that's what I'll probably do.
Do you reckon you would move from Northamptonshire for the right role? I know obviously you haven't lived away from your family before or anything like that too much, so that's a big step. But the reason I asked that is because you said Power BI, and I was like, oh, we use that at work, and we actually always recruit in instead. Not that if you want to come work for us, that'd be great. But but do you ever think about any roles outside of the town that you're in?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's very easy to say that now, I suppose, because there's remote work. There's a lot of remote work opportunities. But in terms of moving, I think so, yeah. Because, I mean, like, 2 years of this pandemic where I've basically been stuck at home. And most of my friends don't live local to me anymore, or even within the county.
Yeah.
A lot of people are in London. About more than 5 people I know quite closely are. So I don't think I'd be averse to it. Yeah, I think I'm at that point now where it would be okay to do that, especially if it was a role that was like serious. Like you say, if it was something that was really secure, was with an established company. It doesn't have to be well known, but something that's really good. I like the idea of the company and I like the role. Yeah, I probably wouldn't be too fussed about that. Obviously, I'd want it to pay decent if I was going to move, because then suddenly I do have dependencies because I have to, spend other money and things like that. So
yeah, I think it's good for a lot of people these days. They can almost like test run it. Like, okay, I'm going to work 2 months from home. And then once we start getting going, I'll look for a house or flat or whatever in my own time, closer to wherever the job actually is, and then I'll start going in. And I think it's quite easy compared to how it used to be.
Yeah, I suppose, because then it allows companies to focus on talent rather than ahead, like we're saying, because it's think about, like, before it was like, we need someone local to fill this role. But now it's like, no, we need the right person to fill the role. It doesn't have to be local, if they can. If it's a role that requires them to be on site or something, and fair enough. But so it could be good, and I'm sure that will happen in the next role that I go into. That it will be. I imagine it will probably, especially if it's related systems and stuff, which you can do most of it remotely. I imagine it will be some sort of hybrid thing anyway, where I might be in the office sometimes and I might not other times. So.
Well, you never know. Like when I worked in Australia, there's people from everywhere, but there was a guy I met in a bar. He was American, but he said, oh, I'm a digital nomad. So I just do like freelance digital, anything. I don't know what specifically, but he's like, oh, I'll be in Hong Kong next week for like a month and here and there. Who knows, right? You can do anything these days. Obviously, without the pandemic makes that a bit difficult, but you can go places and do things. Did you drop out again?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but it seems to connect me straight away. So
yeah, that's fine. But yeah, you can do things in all different countries depending on the pandemic and stuff. So
yes, yeah, definitely.
Cool. Yeah. So I mean, I guess I've kind of done the same thing as you twice now. In a sense, after leaving the police, that was more to travel though. So there was a plan in place, and I had a visa to work in another country. That was more of a like working holiday. But even at the start of the pandemic, I was made redundant from a job that I'd had for only like 2 months. And I can even say it was with Reed, the recruitment agency. And I think it was a blessing in disguise for me, because I didn't enjoy it at all. It was more, I've moved to this place. I have to get a job. Here's a job offer with somewhat decent money. I'll give it a go. I really disliked it. So I'm kind of glad it happened. But I had that time where, okay, I need to find a job. And obviously this wasn't through choice, but I used my time after my wife suggested, why don't you look for a job, but in the same time, you've got this free time. Why don't you do something with it? Don't just be miserable looking for a job, because you can look for jobs on Indeed or whatever over and over and over and over again. And you're not going to get anywhere because there isn't anything new. Going door to door with CVs these days just doesn't work, I don't think. And also in the pandemic at the beginning, nobody was open, so you couldn't do it anyway. But I spent my time learning to teach English to foreign people, to people, that's a weird way to say it, to people that don't speak English as a foreign language, as a first language, sorry. So I learned to do that. It was like a 120-hour course, but I did it really quickly because I had the time, found a job online doing that, and it wouldn't pay the bills, but it helped me until I found the next role.
Yeah.
And I did find a role, but I actually really disliked it from week one. So I left straight away. That was a risk because obviously bills to pay and stuff. But then I eventually found the right role for me, worked there for a year, worked my way from basically minimum wage to a managerial position. And then I got not headhunted, but I applied for the company I'm at now and doing really well so far. So
Yeah,
I think my question to you is, now that you've got the time, do you think you're going to spend more time, or have you been spending more time on hobbies? Or do you feel like you want to start studying something in this time? How are you using your time at the moment? Or what do you want to achieve at the moment?
Yeah, it's been interesting because so the first month or so was weird. I couldn't really say I was doing anything great. You know, I was enjoying myself, but I wasn't. There was a weird sort of mental state I was in where I was sort of thinking of work and things like that. So now that I've got away from that, and I can basically have disassociated from it completely now, so that's quite good. It's a bit weird because I tried to do some stuff and do things that I don't normally do, you know, like as you're aware, I'm very bad at watching TV shows and movies. I don't know. I have a very strange thing where I can't sit down and unless I really like what it is or I know what it is already, it's very hard for me to watch it. Or if I'm with someone, I can watch it. But on my own, I struggle to do that. And it's just weird. Like sometimes I'm like, I almost started self-diagnosing myself. It's like, do I have like ADHD or something? You know, why can't I focus on doing something like this? You know, or is it just that I don't care? Like, am I just not interested enough at this point? So it's been a bit strange. And there's some things where I'll get invested in hobby wise, and I'll just blitz through. And clearly, I was invested and interested in it and enjoy it. So I just think as I've gotten older, and now that I've made these personal choices to leave work and things like that, I just realized that I'm quite picky and like that I have a lot of specific things that I want to do. But that's also opened my eyes a lot because I've realized actually I don't have too much going on in my general life at the moment. You know, like I said, I've left my role and I don't have any dependencies. I don't have, you know, any partner or house or anything like that. So when you have a lot of time like that, you start to think about it and you're like, actually, now I kind of want to do stuff. So now I'm getting into the mood where I'm like, no, I'm going to probably reignite sort of, you know, the search for things, you know, upskilling and getting into a career and looking at next moves and that now. So yeah, it's been double-edged sword. I've really enjoyed some stuff and been able to put time into things that I want to do, but at the same time, it's opened my eyes because I'm potentially trying to force stuff sometimes. And yeah, you know, or it could potentially be because I'm at this current state right now, because I've got nothing to do in terms of like work, you know, in terms of something I have to do, I'm quite free. Maybe that's why I'm finding it hard to do these things, because when you've, you know what I mean, when you've always got the option to do it, sometimes you don't, because you know that it's going to be there the next day.
Yeah. I think for me, like, oh, I've got a weekend and I go, oh, I really want to play this like game or watch this movie or whatever. And then it's like, I've got too much that I want to do that I can't limit the time. And then you just overwhelm yourself and don't do any of it. That's just me. And I think you actually helped me with some of that, where you went through the games list that I had on my backlog and was like, you're not going to play that. You're not going to do this. And I've used that a lot now. If I don't get grabbed by something immediately, then there's no point. And that's books, movies, whatever, TV shows.
But yeah, there's so much, right? There's so much out there that you know, if you were going to spend the time debating over whether to do something or not, it clearly wasn't worth it, right? You know, like a lot of the time, I said this before, like, you got to, if you want to do something, you'll make time to do it. You know, no matter how busy your life is, if you truly wanted to do something, you would find the time, even if it's 10 minutes here and there, to do a bit of it, to get invested in it. You know, even if it means staying up later than you should to do something, you would, because that is interest, right? You know, we want to do, humans get curious about things. They want to do stuff. If we're interested in something, you know, we'll make the time for it. So
yeah, I think so. And I guess, do you feel more refreshed at the moment, or do you feel a little bit lost at the moment with what you do?
I feel sometimes it's up and down. Sometimes some days I get frustrated. Like I put a lot of pressure on myself at the beginning of the year, because I did the classic new year, not new me, but like new year, you know, like I'm going to do different stuff, you know, like this is the chance now. I'm going to, you know, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then suddenly that all just sort of went into your head, and then you're like, oh my god, you've just created this unnecessary pressure because I've got time. I have the time. I'm fortunate enough to be able to take time to do stuff. So why am I creating this unnecessary pressure? So that's a problem. Sometimes I'm trying to think about too many things at once and judging myself for it, when it's a lot easier than that. You don't have to worry about everything at once. Do one thing at a time. And then on the other time, it has been refreshing. As long as I'm, not just wasting time away in that, I'm trying to keep fit. I've been doing exercises pretty much every day, and things like that, and getting out and just sort of getting fresh air and things like that as well, just to make sure, like, even if I don't want to, sometimes I just do it anyway, because there's a sort of good effect that it has on you. So that's refreshing. And the fact that, like I say, I've got the time to choose to do other things, whether it be like help people with things or do my own personal hobbies and things like that. So yeah, it's a bit of both.
Yeah. And I think because I used some of my time, it was much shorter than what you've had, but to study something, do you think that you will study anything in this time? Or is there anything that you thought, I really want to learn how to do that, but I've never really put the time into it? Is that something you're interested in, or not really?
I think I need to at this point, just because, it's probably the best step for me to take to get, something under my belt, and do a bit more there. Yeah, I think I will. And I may even dabble in some things that I'd never imagined doing, and things like that. Like, because a lot of things, unless you try, you don't know what it's going to be like. So,
Exactly.
And if it hooks you, if you do it for a week and suddenly it hooks you, it might be a potential something completely different you never expected. Kind of like you with the teaching English to people who don't speak it as a first language. I don't think you ever really expected that would be something you'd be doing. 5 years ago, you wouldn't have expected you to be doing that, right? Talking to people around the world, about that. And that's impressive, and just shows you that if you just put a feeler out and try something, sometimes it can lead to something really good or bad, but it's worth doing it regardless.
Yeah, and I actually felt burnt out from doing that, because I was just doing it on top of my actual job, because I felt like I'd already got these students built up, so I didn't want to just leave them. And eventually I did, but I've made some like lifelong friendships from that, which is really good, and learned more about my own wife's culture from different people from the same place as her, so it was quite interesting. I guess, do you have like a particular time you want to return to work, or is there any aim of a time frame that you said, I'm not going to go over this if possible, I want just, either X to Y years or months, I suppose?
I mean, there's a lot of different cases I had in my mind, like for me, it was like, no, within 3 months, I've got to do it, because any more than that, it seems bad on a resume, and then others, it's like, no, 3 months is actually not that long at all. It goes by in literally just a snap of the fingers, and it almost has, because it's going to be 3 months next month. So I've not given myself a time limit, but I know that the way I'm feeling right now, I'm going to start making moves by it. I would be surprised if I wasn't, not necessarily within work, but doing something full time, by autumn. If that's what I mean. Like, I think I'd start to get concerned in summer if I hadn't was still as I am now, which is 5 months away. So yeah, I'd imagine in springtime, which will be in a couple of months, is when the moves will start to be made. Or it could be next month. This is the thing, I don't know how it's going to go, but I've got the option to, so I'm kind of leaving it open. I'm not really giving myself a hard time frame, because like I say, when I did that and started thinking about new year, I've got to start doing stuff, it actually just created a bunch of stress for me in like a week. So, and then I was ill at the same time, so maybe that didn't help, or maybe it caused it. It's hard to say, but
and I think most companies, they should not really question career breaks and things at this last couple of years.
I don't think they do.
They might ask you, like on the online forms, they sometimes say like put what you were doing, why you weren't in employment, but you can just put like career break or something. But I'm sure they can ask reasons
as well.
You can put health reasons, and I think people are a lot more open to, employers are a lot more open to these things these days. I think some used to be like, why have you taken a career break? Is it something important? Were you having a child or something? Some people just need a break. Like really, some people just need a break. I think obviously with pandemic being as it is and travel being pretty much non-existent, for me, obviously when I did the career break, I did it to travel. Do you think travel would have been an option for you, or is it an option for you in some way? Do you want to go anywhere while you can, or not really?
I don't know if I was ever of the mind that of traveling, because a lot of people sort of, just be like, right, I'm just going to set off. You kind of did it. You went around Southeast Asia and things like that, and then Australia, and you kind of just basically set off, right, with a minimal plan. Like, I want to go to these places and do something, not like like everything wasn't organized down to a T.
No.
For me, I don't think I'm more of a. That's the sort of backpack style. I think where it's just sort of like get out, sort it out when you get there, sort of thing. I don't think I'm like that when it comes to traveling. I'm more of a sort of, I'd like to go here to see this, to do this specific reason. I don't think I'd try and spin it as a new opportunity for me. So I don't think that's something that I will do. And I'm 28 now. So I feel like it's something I would have done in my early 20s or mid 20s if I had have. So yeah, I don't think it appeals to me massively. That could change. I mean, in the next year, I might decide to, or I could potentially take a sort of random trip somewhere and then realize, actually, I do want to do this. So, but yeah, because I'm more interested in going to see places for certain things rather than go and work there or something. And yeah, I'd imagine I'd still be more of a holiday or tourist, or rather than a backpacker, if you like.
Yeah. And I think for me, doing the backpacking thing was more like I left more for mental health reasons. Like I've mentioned, like it's more, okay, I'm dealing with horrible situations every day due to the nature of the job. It's affecting my own mental health, as is other stuff that's happening at home. I just need to completely reset. I think it's a bit different for you. But do you think there's any sort of, do you think the burnout was caused a little bit through mentality, your own mentality at the time, like mental health, or is it purely just I can't be bothered with it?
Both of those definitely together. I think. I think I can't be bothered with it was the main thing that got me to put it in. At the beginning, it was mental health because I got really upset. Obviously, that time, like I said, and broke down. And then as I sort of learned to work with it a bit more, it then became I can't be bothered, and I'm just fed up of doing the same things again. So both of those combined. But I guess you could argue there is some self-inflicted things to it. I'm living at home, don't have a house or kids or wife or partner or anything. So it's easy for me to just sit here and do the work and work this job and things like that. So there was no risk, I guess. And when there's less risk, people are kind of more relaxed. So potentially that is something that I might need to work on still, to be fair. So that might be, I mean, taking big jumps is often what pushes you on to the next thing. So it might be what I need to do, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, I really think self-care is really important. I think a lot of, it's almost like a bit of a meme in a way now. Like I think you see online, so many people post about their mental health and stuff. And I think some of that is genuine. Like, we have this ability now to talk to anybody, anywhere, or put our thoughts out anywhere, good or bad. And I think some people, it's almost like a trend. Like, oh, I've got this mental health issue, or, and it really irks me when I feel like it's just them saying it for the sake of it. But I think in any case, even if you don't have mental health issues, or if you do, self-care is so important. Either being, you take the time for yourself to just do a hobby, you look out for your own mental health, like you decided, this job's not for me, or same for me. And I think for me, using even now when I've got all these responsibilities and I've got a full-time job, self-care is still really important. Like I go to the gym. Luckily it's through work, so I don't have to pay, so it's very good. Or sometimes I want to have just like a nice wine and a video game session, or just talk to you guys. So I think, do you think you took enough time for yourself before you left this role, or do you think you're taking more time now that you have the time?
Yeah, I think the latter. I think I'm taking more time now that I do. I'll be honest with you, I kind of used to scoff at mental health issues. Like not in a really bad way, but like I used to be like, oh well, it doesn't affect me. I used to be thinking just like, just deal with it, or something, and some people were just, I don't know, I'd see things and I'd be like, why are you angry at this? It's going to change within like 2 days, or something. Just get used to it, things like that. And then I realized that that's just not the way to approach it at all, because it's bit me in the ass in a way. It's come back to bite me, and Now, and I think everyone is seeing that now. Mental health is there's been a massive push to look at it now. Yes, I think you're right. There's probably some people that put it on a bit, or some people that maybe have not learned how to deal with it, and thus maybe are potentially overreacting to certain things. And that's kind of annoying, because maybe they get attention as to the people that truly need it. But I think a lot of people hide it as well. I think I kind of did a little bit, and that's why I kind of broke down at one point in the pandemic, because I didn't realize that it was affecting me. And they often say this, there's these people sometimes, when people unfortunately, take their own life or things like that, you never would have expected that person to do so. Because it's a different thing. Like, depression, they're saying, is a bit a one that's hidden for a lot of people.
Yeah.
What's a really good example was Robin Williams. I find is always a really good example of that. He's this massively beloved actor, made people laugh, always looked to be happy, and then suddenly that was it. And people didn't realize he was really struggling. So yeah. There's things to be said about the social perception of what a mental health issue is, I suppose. But yeah, I'm taking more time for myself now and realizing that it's okay to take time for yourself, especially for me as well in the position I'm at. Like I said, I created that unnecessary stress for me a little while ago by thinking I need to do stuff. But it's like, no, it's okay. Just take a little bit of time, work on one thing at a time. And everyone's situation is different. You just don't know what people are going through. You might be able to apply tips and tricks of dealing with things to your method, but you will have to eventually get help and find your own way through a problem that you have. Everyone's different. So
yeah. And I think it's a little slightly off topic, but I think it's very important for men as well, like to talk about their mental health. I'd certainly hid my own issues for so long that it caused me to break down, and luckily through work I could get counseling, but that's not affordable to everybody. And I certainly think that was the best thing I ever did, to use that. I don't think it works for everybody, don't get me wrong, but I think that men in general, still a lot of them have this, you can't show your feelings or that sort of thing. And the same for women. I think it's just important that everybody is honest with themselves and uses self-care as much as possible. So yeah, I think it's good. And I think this is in a way self-care for yourself, the way you just, okay, this isn't working for me, I need to get out of this, take it some time while I don't have, like you said, dependencies or anything. And I think what would you say to someone in the same position as you now, if they were exactly the same position as you, but they're still working, they don't have dependencies? Would you tell them to go for it, or do you think, how would you breach that subject with somebody?
It's interesting because, like I say, it's definitely personal. But if there was someone that was almost a carbon copy of myself, and they were holding on to it, I would just basically tell them to just look at themselves, like look at the way you're behaving. If you're behaving in a certain way, and that is a negative way, that is saying something. I would get days where I was getting stressed and I was getting angry, but I was also like I'd physically get mad at something, and I could feel it in my body, and getting frustrated at something that's going on. And it was such a petty thing, and it was such a minor thing. And it's like, I never do that in my life, in all my personal life. So why is it work creating this, So I think so. I would just say that if someone does do what I'm doing, that they have to do something. They have to keep a routine, no matter what it is, even if it's literally just going for a walk every day, or if it's doing something productive just for a little bit every day or a little bit every week. Make sure you do something, because it is depression. Again, I'll quote depression because it is this sort of it's a real big thing that everyone, I think, experiences. It's this sort of lurking monster that will drag you into it if you don't actively try and do stuff. So you've got to be careful, but at the same time, take time for yourself. If you've got the opportunity to, don't fret and do it, because not much is going to change. The world's going to keep on going, so you're just going to be able to jump back in when you're ready. And if you're not ready to do something, it's going to affect whatever it is you're going into, or the people that you're going to be around. It's going to affect them if you're not ready. And that goes for relationships as well. If a lot of people with their family or with romantic, relationships and things like that, if you're not comfortable, it's going to affect your family, or it's going to affect the people around you, and that, and it's yeah. I think you need to work on yourself first before you start getting into other things. So yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
It's so important. Yeah, and like you were saying, I think we had like when we had like November, just before I left at the business, and it was actually a focus on men's mental health. And not to downplay, everyone's got mental health things, but it was good to see that just that was getting acknowledgement, because there's a lot of things that society just, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. There's a lot to talk about. This could be a whole other topic we could get into, I suppose, with regards to certain issues for certain people. But I'm just glad that there's a focus on it now, and that people are accepting that people need to. Everyone's different, and everyone should be taken care of, and people need help, and people sometimes don't. People sometimes need to be left alone, I suppose, or given their own room. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess my last sort of question for you is, and it goes back to previous questions. Were you ever worried about what people would think about you leaving? Not so much the company, but more like your friends or your family, because let's be real. You're living with your family still, so perhaps they were thinking, oh, he's going to move out soon or something. I'm sure they don't put any pressure on you, much like my own parents didn't in similar situation. But did you ever think, not that you're letting people down, but I don't know, how did you think people would react to the news?
I still do think that there is, because there is, and you shouldn't really think like this, but there is that people are going to subconsciously make judgments, and it's not their own fault. Everyone does that. That's how we work. But yeah, like I went to go get my haircut the other day, and obviously, hairdressers you kind of speak to quite regularly, and you catch up with like every month or so and things like that. And so she kind of knows what I'm doing. I know what she's doing. So we have a chat and catch up and things like that. And there's part of me that was like, oh, I've not really done anything since the last time I've seen it. I've kind of just been taking time still for myself. So it's like, I was like kind of, and then that thought came in. I was like, why am I thinking that? I don't need to worry about that. So yeah, I think that's always a thing. I don't, because it's always easy to just think, and you shouldn't, because the golden rule is don't really, unless you're hurting other people, or unless it's people you care about, you shouldn't really care what other people think. But that's so easy to say, because we all do care what people think, even if it's minor stuff. That's why we dress certain ways. That's why we want to look certain ways, because we care about the way people think, even if it's subconscious. So yeah, and I get that sometimes as well. Still, like you say, people could judge me like, oh, this guy's so cushy. He's living with his parents. He doesn't have a job. He's got some savings saved up. Look at him. He's not doing all this, blah, blah, blah. I'm working. I'm doing this, So and that's my own thought there, of just saying like, oh, so someone's going to judge me because I'm not working, because I'm doing this, blah, 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 But like the mental health thing, everyone's situation is different. So I think it's very difficult to be able to judge someone in that way. So yeah, I have had that feeling. I'm sure I'll continue to have that, because that is, in a way, I think you're a reflection of your own thoughts. It's not what other people are thinking. It's what you are criticizing yourself on. And I know you're your own worst enemy, as they say, but that is clearly something you want to do. Like, for me, it's like, if I don't have a job and I'm thinking people are going to judge me for not having a job, it's clearly something that I feel I need to do. Whether that's a view that's been imposed upon me by society in the way that I'm meant to think, or if it's an actual personal want, it's going to be something there. So until I get that and achieve that, I'm going to be having that. So yeah, I don't think that thought's going to go. They're not that bad, and they're not massively there, but there'll always be something there until I get to that point. So, because I'm sure I'm sure a lot of people have it with the whole sort of get a house, get a car, get a job, have kids, get married and things like that, where in actual fact, you don't need to do, well, probably job is mainly the only one you really need to do, because to live in society, but all the others you don't really need to do. You don't need to get married, you don't need to have kids, you don't need to have a car if you want to walk everywhere and things like that. So yeah, some of that you need to reflect on and think, is this actually what I want, or is it what I think I should be doing? So yeah, I don't think I've got to the point where I'll be able to get rid of those thoughts yet.
No, maybe you never will, but who knows what's around the corner, right? For example, you could so, next month have some brilliant idea, make a company that makes thousands of millions of pounds or whatever, and think back and go, oh, all these people that judged me, well, look what I'm doing now. You may not do that, but who knows what's around the corner. And I think we'll wrap it up really, because I'm curious to see where you'll go next. I'm curious to see what else you might do with your time. And I think
me too.
Yeah, it's such a, it's like, well, yeah, what do you do with your time? But you might find like this brand new hobby tomorrow that you really enjoy and you're going to love for the rest of your life. It could be the most random thing, like you said with me in teaching. Never expected that I would do that, and it helped me actually now deal with my own team at work, who's a multinational team of people from completely different countries. They all speak English, but it helps with a lot of different things there. So I guess we'll wrap it up there. But I think, thank you really much very much for your time. I know it was a bit formal because obviously we know each other super well, but I think this is really helpful for a lot of people, and probably cathartic for you, actually. And it's made me think of how I dealt with things at the time. So yeah, I think just thank you for your time, and we'll catch up again sometime in a few years and see where you're at. See how this went.
No, I look forward to it, definitely.
Cool. I'll stop the recording there.